So yes, I guess we are live now. So hi, good evening everyone. Welcome back to day 13th. Let's continue with our sessions. So in the last sessions, we have done a couple of things, right? So we started with basics of Selenium, then we did intermediate part, and we also started our Selenium interview series, right? Now we have done a couple of questions from Selenium side, but the moment you start attending interviews, right, we have a couple of questions from TestNG, from Mavens, from Jenkins and all, right? So let's understand with the TestNG part. We'll start with TestNG, few sessions on TestNG, one session on Maven. And if time permits, I will try to cover Jenkins as well, but not sure on that. So once we're done with TestNG and Maven, we'll try to have one more interview related sessions where we'll discuss the different questions which you can expect from TestNG, Maven, and free questions from Jenkins as well. Okay, so before we start, can anybody confirm in the chat window, am I audible properly, and can you see my screen as well? Okay, please give me a quick confirmation. Okay, so we have Ashish, Manoj, Shekhar, Harinder, Wasim. Wasim is asking, Mukesh, are you a relative of Ambani? No. It is just we have similar surname, right? Ni, but no relation as such. Okay. Thank you so much for the confirmation. We'll wait for 2 more minutes and then we will start. Okay. So thank you so much for the confirmation, Niti Ratna. Ashish, I have one question. Good evening, Mukesh. Please tell us how should we format our resume for 3 to 5 year of manual and automation testing. So Ashish, see when you talk about the format, right? So you can continue with your whatever resume you have created. Make sure you have added the proper skill set for automation. Okay. So let's say if you're adding Java with Selenium, right? Then you have to add the full stack that we use. But let's say if you are adding Cypress with JavaScript, then make sure you add the full stack according to the JavaScript. Apart from that, whatever projects you have, you can mention the project as well. And if you want the sample resume, just mail me after the session. I can share one sample resume. So based on the experience range, you can change certain tools. You can change obviously the company name, experience, and the projects, right? Rest of the things will remain same. Again, a question like nowadays everybody is telling about recession is just to come on August. Is it true? I don't think so, Ashish, about this news on recession. I know the market is down right now. If you see the Nifty and Sensex is down because it was overhyped. Okay, it was like touching 60,000 and 18,000 something. So if you see from that angle, yes, market is getting saturated in terms of, I will say, stocks, but I don't think the recession will come, at least in, I will say, IT. Okay, so let's start. So before we start, a quick announcement for those who are planning to learn Cypress, Playwright, and WebDriver IO using JavaScript. So batch is about to start from next to next weekend. Not next to next. Coming weekend is around 8 and 9. So from 16th we are starting, and this is the course curriculum. Those who are interested. And yes, this is the link. Please check if you are interested, and those who are not interested, you can share with your friends, with your colleagues, and you can also give my coupon code, which is Mukesh Otwani 10, if they want to will take 10% additional off. Aryan says 8 months back you have taken my interview. Okay, interesting, Aryan. I have taken a couple of interviews, right, when I was in SAP. I have taken more than 200 plus in my last 8 years. So I don't remember the exact name, but yeah, how was the experience? I hope you have learned something from that interview, because in interviews what I do, I generally provide my feedback as well. So in case you got some feedback, please try to work on that feedback as well. But thank you so much for highlighting. Okay, so let's take two more questions and we'll start with our session. Mukesh, is there any standard that we need to use, any specific element locator? So Rajesh, as I mentioned, that we don't have any specific locator that you should only use this, but I would always recommend start using dynamic locate, I will say XPath or the dynamic CSS selectors, because it actually helps a lot in the maintenance phase. Okay, so what happens when people start writing automated tests, right? So whatever ID's name we get, we quickly write, like copy and paste in a script and we start, right? But later on, obviously locator keeps changing based on the UI, based on what framework they're using, right? So if you don't put initial effort, you need to put a lot of effort in the maintenance phase. I always recommend start writing smart locators. You can take the help of selectors hub. You can write a query quick locators in a dynamic fashion and you can use it. But pay attention to the locators that are the main part of any automation tool. So whether it's a, I will say Playwright, whether it's a Cypress, WebDriver, IO, Selenium, doesn't matter. Okay, locators are the main part. There was a recent post on LinkedIn as well that we should not put much attention to the locator, but I don't agree. We should have a proper understanding and you should have a clear picture how to use which locator and when. Okay, so Aryan says SAP Labs, yeah. So best of luck, Aryan. I hope you are able to clear now. So best of luck once again. Wasim says, I'm taking interviews of candidate. I felt that nowadays people are not taking efforts. They waste their time on YouTube, Netflix and politics. Yes, Wasim, I agree. Not everyone, but yeah, most of the time. What is happening, they are falling into the trap. Instead of paying attention to the skill set, they are putting much attention to the Netflix and other areas. And automation is not only Selenium, guys. Okay, every 3 months something new is coming, and if you don't keep, I will say, yourself updated, you will be behind the game. So in automation, every 3 months or 6 months new tool is coming, new framework is coming, right? So start, I will say, adopting these things, then only you will be in the game. Otherwise, nowadays everybody knows Selenium with Java, or I will say everybody knows what is Selenium, right? So start learning new tools in the framework, not only Cypress, Playwright, whatever things you think is applicable for your job. Maybe it's cloud, maybe you want to move to DevOps, maybe you want to learn, take any new certificates. Okay, I highly recommend you spend 30 minutes of 1 hour daily on new learnings. Okay, that will give you a long-term return. Okay, Nikita, I have one question. Any suggestions to learn Rest Assured? Not sure. Scare of Rest Assured. Nikita, trust me, Rest Assured is one of the easiest library I have ever seen. It is just once you understand the different classes, different, I will say the interfaces they have, right? It's very easy. They made a lot of things easy. You just need to understand the classes, interfaces they have, when to use what. On the fly, you can add. It's all about the chaining in Rest Assured. One object will return you, like one method will return you object of request specification, response specification, right? So once you understand this chaining part, it's very easy. Soon I'm going to come up with Rest Assured course as well. It will be live session just like this. We will be having live sessions on Rest Assured. I'm not sure whether it will be paid or free. Few sessions will be free, obviously, but I will be coming up with 2 months live course on Rest Assured as well. Okay, so let's continue. Aryan says that time I was not able to answer 2-3 questions. You rejected me. So Aryan says it's not about I have some personal grudges with you. It is just we have certain conditions. Like if somebody is not able to answer the basic questions, which we were expecting that experienced person should know, then we have to take a call. And sometimes I forward the resume to the next level, but it gets rejected to the next time, like next level. So sure, Nikita, I will keep you posted. Okay, so let's continue with our session. So till now, whatever we have done, it was completely Selenium. Okay, it means we did not use any test framework. We have not used any unit test framework so far. So it was whatever we were writing, it was public static void main. It was just a plain Java program, not an actual test. But today we will be using one of the test framework, unit test framework called TestNG. So in Java, basically we have only two unit test framework. One is JUnit and second one is TestNG. Okay, so if your project is running from a long time, then you must see they must have used JUnit, and still I can see few companies are using JUnit because they don't want to migrate. But from the last few years, TestNG is like which everybody is using. TestNG stands for testing next generation. NG means next generation. It has almost all the features which JUnits provide, plus it has a lot of new features which we can directly use it. So in the upcoming sessions, next 2 to 3 days, you will see a lot of new things, new features which TestNG provides that can help you to write a proper test, proper assertions, parallel execution, data-driven test, and so on. Okay, now let me show you the official documentation of TestNG. Okay, and then we'll continue. So I will start with official website, which is TestNG. TestNG.org is the official website which you can visit. It has a lot of things, so I will try to cover most of them, but if you are someone who love to read documentation, please go ahead. Now if you talk about this, what is TestNG? It's a testing framework, to be more precise, unit test framework, inspired from JUnit and NUnit. So NUnit we use when you use C#, okay? So the moment you start working with C#, you will be using NUnit and you will find all the same features. Now when you talk about the features, if you can see, it's annotations. Most of the features are provided in terms of annotations. You just need to use @ symbol, use the annotation, depends what annotation you're using, and you can write your test. So we have some precondition annotations, post conditions annotations, like before suite, before class, before test, before groups, before methods. Then we have after suite, after class, after test, after methods, and so on. Run your test in arbitrary big thread pool with various policies. It means now you don't have to worry about the thread part. So Manoj, you were asking a lot of things from threads, right? So TestNG take care of this thread part, and it can create number of threads depends on the thread count that you will set. We will talk about thread count probably day 3, like on 15th class or 14th. You can decide how many threads you want, and these threads, how do you want to schedule? You want to run the class basis, method level, test suite basis, and it will generate multiple threads for you. Apart from that, test that code is multi-threaded safe, okay, because all these threads will be running independently, so you don't have to worry about the synchronization part. It supports DDT with the help of data provider. It means, suppose if you want to run your test multiple times, maybe 5 times, 10 times, 15 times, depends on the data set you have. You can actually run your test multiple times with the help of data provider. You can call as a data-driven test using TestNG. So when you create your own framework, right, you will be using this data provider a lot, and this data provider can take the data from Excel, from CSV, from JSON, from database, depends how your data set is available. Now it supports parameters, very important part, because you cannot hard code everything in your test, right? You need parameters. So TestNG provides, you can have parameters in your testng.xml files, and you can pass parameters. Don't worry guys, this is just a theory session, okay? I will show you once we move ahead, but it has a lot of features. Powerful execution model, then you can see it supports varieties of plugins like IDE, Eclipse, IntelliJ, and so on. Yeah, so let's continue, and they have a very beautiful documentation, guys. So if you go through the documentation, all these annotations that we will be using is already available here. Apart from these, the properties that we are going to use, like always run, depends on group, enables groups, and so on. And these are the examples they have given. Obviously you are not going to use all the features because it totally depends how you are writing your test. Now before we start, you need to have 2 things. The first thing that you need to keep in mind, that you should have installed. Just a second, let me take this Sublime text editor here. First thing that you need a plugin. We are going to install one plugin in our Eclipse so that we can start using this TestNG features. So we need to install this plugin. Now you can do in two mode, or you can either do it from the Eclipse marketplace, or you can also go ahead and do with the help of direct link. Marketplace is the easiest option. Just like we have Play Store, App Store, right? The multiple apps are available. Eclipse also have a plugin or extension marketplace, I would say, where you can download these plugins and continue. In some cases, if this marketplace installation is not working, then you have to go with the direct link as well. Once we are done, we will be installing one dependency. So till now we have configured two dependencies, right? One was Selenium dependency and second was WebDriver Manager. Now we will be using TestNG as a dependency. As usual, it will download the dependencies and then you will get the TestNG library. Obviously, it will have a lot of classes, interfaces, methods that we are going to use today. So let me show you the number of steps. The first thing that we need to keep in mind, I'm using Mac as of now, so options will be little different for you. So just you need to click on Windows and you will, just go to help section and you will see something called Eclipse Marketplace. There also we have one more link before marketplace, that download using link, okay, install new software. That is only applicable if this marketplace is not working. Now you can see this option. We have this marketplace. You can search for one plugin called TestNG and hit enter. So right now you can see in my case it's already installed, so you can see this installed. But if you do it from the scratch, if you're doing it first time, you will see install option. Click on this. It will ask you to accept the terms condition. Accept the terms condition. After that, it will ask you to trust this site. Click on trust this site. It will ask you to restart your Eclipse. Just do the Eclipse restart, not the system restart, and you should be able to continue. Okay. Then the second is we need to install TestNG as a dependency. For that, again, you can visit mavenrepository.com. You can directly do it from their official website as well, but their version is not updated. So if I go to testng.org, if you go to this download, you will see they have updated. So previously it was not updated. So at the time of this live session, the current version is 7.6.0. And if you want to see the previous releases as well, just search for TestNG. This one. Okay, they also launched a new version. It is actually in June, so 7.6.1. But if you see, the number of usage are very high for this version, 7.4.0. So I would recommend go with 7.4.0. Okay, copy this, come back, and this was the project that we were using, right? So I already added here, but in your case, if you have not added, you can see in my case it's already added here. But if you don't have like this, just add and click on save. It will take few seconds and we are good to go. Now we can continue. So let me show you. Let me create a new package today called TestNG examples. Okay, so before I start about TestNG, how many of you have not used TestNG, have not used JUnit or any testing framework with any other tool? Okay, so let's say if you're coming from JavaScript, then you must have used Mocha and Chai, right? So anyone here who have not even used TestNG once or JUnit, completely new to unit test framework, let me know in the chat section. So let me go ahead and create a new file. Okay, now you can continue with a normal class. So if I create a new class, I can still continue just like what we used to do earlier. But if you don't want to do it in this way, we also have another way where you can create a TestNG class directly. And this is only possible because we have installed that plugin, right? So if I right click on this, and if I click on new, if I click on others, you will see one option called TestNG. So if you click on this, you will see one option called TestNG class directly. And if I click on next, you can see this option, right? It will ask you a couple of details. So source folder, it says it's going to take place in src test java, which is this. Package name is TestNG examples, which we have created just now. Class name, it will create a new test. So if I write my first TestNG test, this will be the actual class name. And you will see a couple of annotations here, like before method, after method, before class, after class, before test, after test, before suite, after suite, and data provider. Here you can also define the XML suite file, which I will tell you once we start. So you can also create one XML file directly from here. Let me just click on finish, and you can see it created this class automatically. And the method name, as you can see, it's F right now, but we can change it to test1. Now this is a blank test as of now. Okay, the moment I run this, okay, it is going to run and it will give you some results. Okay, obviously it will pass because we don't have any body as such. It says passed test1, run 1, failure 0, skip 0, and you will also see one more option called default suite. Don't worry about this part, I will come back to this, but just want to make sure that everything is working fine. I create TestNG class, it created a method with @test annotation, and I can directly run from here, or I can right click on my program and I can say run as TestNG test, and it's working fine. It means everything is configured properly. Now let's see the another way, that is standard way. No, I will not say standard, but those who are coming from Java background, they don't want to create separate TestNG class. They create a Java class and write the methods accordingly and continue. So in that case, create a new class, and I will say my TestNG test. I'm not selecting public static void main this time. I want a blank class, and you will get like this. Okay, now the moment you start working with TestNG, you need a method. In TestNG, you can convert your method, normal Java method, into a test case with the help of a single annotation called @test, T capital and test. So suppose if I create one method called public void test1, this is one of my method, right? It's not a test case right now. The moment I execute this, you can see I'm not getting any run configuration because I don't have main method, so it is not giving me option to run as Java application. It does not have any test annotation, so it's not even giving me to run as a TestNG test. But if I write now before method, okay, @test, and it will ask me to import, I will put mouse over. Now can you see this option, import test, and it's coming from org.testng.annotations. This is the package that we need to use. The moment you use this, it has imported the package. Now I can continue with my steps. How many steps I have, I can write inside this method and it will continue. Let's say I just want to write sysout system.out.println test1 executed. This is my first test case where we created a method, we kept @test, and now you can see see, this is a run and debug feature which is coming, right? It's coming because I'm using the latest version of Eclipse. Now if you're using the previous versions of Eclipse, you might not get this option called run, debug and run all. So I would recommend start using the latest versions so that at least you can see these features. So even if you don't have, you can still continue right click run as TestNG test, but why not to take advantage of direct options. Now if I execute this, you can see since I added TestNG @test annotation, it's saying run as TestNG test, and yes, it executed my test case. So the first line says that TestNG version which we're using at at this live session, we're using 7.4.0. This is the sysout statement that we have added, and this is the status of my test case. As of now, I have only one test, and this is the test case name test1. Method name is your test case name now. If you change the method name, test case name will change. Now it says the summary of this test class. It says total 1 execution, failure 0 and skip 0. We'll talk about the different statuses, and this is the complete suite summary. As of now we just have one class, so for the time being you can ignore this. Once you have the test suite, right, then you will see this option. Now this is the console output. You will also see something called one additional tab, which is results of running your current class. And if you notice, we have now default suite, default test. Now how it is coming, it is actually coming from a testng.xml file which is getting generated at runtime. Okay, how and where to see this file I will show you within a minute, but this is coming from our XML. So when you don't create any testng.xml file, it creates for you at temporary location, and next time when you run, it will create a new one. It will keep overriding. And this is your class along with the package, and this is the test name. And you can see this section, passed 1, failure 0, skip 0. Now let me create another test, public void test2, curly bracket open and close, and I can write another statement, test2 executed. See, as of now, understand the functionality part. Once you understand, instead of writing sysout, I will write the actual Selenium statements here. And let me create one more. I will set test3 and this test3 executed. So total 3 test cases, and now I can click on run all. That is one option which will run all the test cases. So in my case, as you can see, test 1, 2, 3 executed, right? This is the status and summary part. Same thing you will see here, test 1, 2, 3. Okay, let me see a couple of chat. Manoj is not used much, only basic stuff exploring as of now. Okay, Abhay says not used, so Abhay, that will be very useful because now you will understand few features of TestNG, how to use, when to use. Ashutosh, I don't use. Okay, Ashutosh, then which framework you're using? Nandini says screen is blur. Can you please enlarge it? Is my screen blur? I don't think so. Can anybody confirm in the chat window? Now Harinder says, can you please explain any scenario where we need to install Maven separately apart from using in Eclipse as bundled with project itself? Yes, Harinder. So right now, the moment you use Eclipse, right, it comes along with Maven, so you don't need. But suppose if you have to run your test from CMD, because Eclipse is just a development environment, that is only while writing the scripts you will see. But at the end of the day, you will be running your test from CMD, right? You will be running your test in CI/CD pipeline. At that time, you cannot use ID. You need a Maven, you need MVN command basically, so that you can pass that, execute this goal. Let's say MVN clean, MVN test, MVN install, MVN verify. So this MVN, right, you need to configure it. So you will download a library, you will download a binary in Mac or in Windows. You need to set a path so that you can execute this MVN from any terminal or any command prompt. Rohit says TestNG is testing framework or automation framework. So Rohit, it's a testing framework, unit test framework. Using this framework, you can build your own automation framework. See, generally this unit test framework used by developers to write their unit test cases. But we are using the same unit test framework to build our end-to-end scenarios. Okay, so if you don't want to use TestNG, go ahead with JUnit. But you have to use at least one of the unit test frameworks so that you can start writing the test. Okay. Now, very important part. Let me delete this test folder, test output, because I can show you from the scratch. Let me run this again. Run as TestNG test. All executed. Now, how do we see the report? By default, TestNG gives you multiple type of reports. You don't need to write a single line of code. The moment you right click and say refresh, you will get one additional folder called test-output. Now, you don't need to see all these files. Just focus on this report first of all, which is emailable report. Like, it will be summary of all the test suites that you will be running. As of now, we just have one test class, so you will have only few details. Let me show you this. The moment you open, so this is one of the report, which is emailable report. Again, this default test is coming from the XML, which I will show you. But as usual, this is our package name, this is my class name, this is my method name, which is actually the test case name, test case IDs, and you can see the time which has taken 8 milliseconds, 4 milliseconds, because we are just executing sysout statement, right? But the moment you execute the actual Selenium test, you will see the time taken by each test class or the test methods. That is type 1 report. The second report that you will see, this is more detailed report, like index.html file. Why it is not opening directly Eclipse? Open with web browser. Let me open here. So this is the actual XML that is getting generated, and you can see the location as well, right? This is the location where this XML is getting generated, and this is the XML file content which is running your actual test class and the test cases. For the time being, I will just keep it somewhere, but we will be creating our own testng.xml file. We will not use this. Okay, this is getting generated. Don't worry, keep it, let them generate. We will be creating our own XML file. We'll customize, we'll change the proper name, we'll add the thread count and so on. But if you see closely, there's a basically one tag called suite tag, and if you don't give, it takes default suite. And if you see the second test tag, right? So one suite can have multiple test suites. So it is having a test tag which has classes, and it is actually running our class. So whatever you see here, default test, default suite, that is actually getting displayed here. Can you see default suite? Because it's coming from that XML which is getting generated at this temp location. Right now, just one class, 0 groups. I will talk about the groups, how to create groups, how to include groups, how to exclude the groups. As of now, 0 groups. Times, it's showing in a tabular format. Reported output, nothing. Chronicle view, how they are running. And if you click on this, the 3 tests are getting executed. That is the second report. First was emailable report. Second one is index.html. Now one more report. See, this is For each test suite, it will generate a report for you. So if you have 5 test suite, 5 folders will get created. If you have 10 test suite, 10 folders will get created. As of now, we just have 1 test suite, so just creating a default suite, and it has one HTML file, default test.html. And this is another report which I want to show you. Let me open a new tab. Right? So 3 different reports, depends which report you like, you can share. But I want to add a small disclaimer here. These reports are not that attractive. Basic reports which is getting generated automatically. You can still continue with that, but we can use one extend report and alert report. Obviously, we need to download it, add them as a dependencies. We need to add few listeners which will help us to generate this report, but very attractive reports. And you can also attach the screenshots, you can attach the videos, plus it will show you the pie chart, graphs, very attractive reports. Whether you go with extend or allure, it's totally up to you. But default reports is fine since you're not writing a single line of code. But in real time, we use either extend or allure report. Again, there are multiple reporting libraries. Okay, few are paid as well, but you can start with extend or allure report. Is this basic example clear to everyone? How to create a class, how to create a test cases, and how to execute, see the report. Now in the next examples, we'll do some variations. I will add certain attributes and we'll see some other things. But is this clear to everyone? Please give me quick information in the chat section. Let me take few questions. Abhishek says, please bring one complete course on Java with Selenium on 9. Abhishek, recording is in progress. I already started recording from today. It will take another month. So probably end of this July, you will get a dedicated course on Java with Selenium, TestNG, Maven, Jenkins, complete stack on this part you will get. And the new batch will start in September 1st week. Shiva says, what is the difference Cucumber TestNG? See, this dependency Shiva will be used when you're going with Cucumber. Okay, since I'm not using Cucumber, I can go with this TestNG, like which is TestNG is a unit test framework. But when you work with Cucumber, right, you have to use one additional dependency. Cucumber is very tightly integrated with JUnit, but even if you go with TestNG, you need to add Cucumber-TestNG dependency. Jatin says how to run the test parallelly. So Jatin, let's understand the basic. Probably tomorrow or day after tomorrow we'll have the parallel execution. So I have a topic where we'll do the cross-browser testing sequentially, cross-browser testing parallelly. So if you want to run test in parallel, we can do in 3 different modes. So you can do parallel execution, depends on how many classes you have. Suppose you have 3 classes, 1, 2, 3. You want to run these 3 classes parallelly, possible. Suppose you have 3 test suite, 1 test suite, 2nd test suite, 3rd test suite. Each test suites have certain classes and methods. You can do that as well. Third one is depends on methods. Suppose one test class have 3 methods, exactly like what we have test 1, 2, 3, right? If you want to run them also in parallel, it is possible. 3 different options we have. So we'll see that once we move ahead. Neeraj says, in my TestNG version, not run all is not coming. Okay, so Neeraj, as I told, right, this is not something which TestNG provide. It's Eclipse feature. So you can go with the latest version and you will see this option. If you want the exact version which I'm using, let me tell you. Let me open Eclipse, about Eclipse. I'm using 4.24. So let me know in the chat section, Neeraj, which version you are using. So if I'm not wrong, from 4.18 they have added. So start using 4.20 or 21, or go ahead with the 24 version as well. It should come. Let me know in the chat section which version you are using. Rajesh is asking what is the latest version of Java that we use for automation. Go with Rajesh 8 or 11. Now let me add few more tests, or let me create a separate test altogether. This is blank, I will delete it, not required at this moment. Let me create one more class and I will say my TestNG test2. Now let me talk about the attributes. The moment you add @test, right, put pair of parentheses and press control space. Okay, just add pair of parentheses, control space. You will see the list of attributes which you can add in your test. So if you see, we have so many attributes. We are not going to use all of them, but yes, few are very important that we will see. So if you talk about the always run, if you see, if this set to true, this will always run even if the depends method is failed. I will talk about this. This basically comes when you have dependency between the test cases. Okay, you can add the custom attributes. Just a second. We have data provider, depends on method, depends on group, enable status, description, lot of attributes. So let's start with the first one, description. You can also talk about the test that you are running. Okay, so write the description of each test. So let me say this is my login test. This is my logout. Let's say this is account creation, and let me say this is logout. I want this kind of hierarchy, that it should log in, then it should create some accounts, leads, payment, whatever test you have, then do the logout. So the first test is login to application. Then the second test, I want to add a description. Create account, and the last one is description equal to logout from application. Okay, now have proper name, description added, but the moment I run this, you will see some different behavior. You will see some different order in which they will execute. The moment I executed the first one, it was running test 1, 2, 3, right? But notice this time I have changed the method name, login, account creation, and logout. So the moment I run this, can you see? It executed, but can you see the order? First it executed the account creation, then it did the login, then it did the logout. Okay, and if you go back to the console, you will see the same thing. See, don't worry about this part. The main thing that you need to see is this guy, in which order they are getting executed. So it is executed first account creation, right? So test 2 executed. Maybe I can change this as well. See, there's some spammers again, guys, please report them. Let me also change this so that it should make some sense. Account created and logout from application. Executed again. Right, first account created, then login and logout. So why it is happening? Because the moment you change the method name, right, it runs based on the alphabetic order. So if you have 5 tests, 10 tests, and if you don't set the priority, it runs in alphabetic order. Keep this point in mind. So in our case, now account creation A starts like it starts from A, right, alphabetic. So A, B, C, D, like so. Account creation got executed first. Now if you see this login and logout, so log is common, right? Login, logout. So I comes first, so it started with login, because log is same, but I came first, so it started with login then log out. So you need to be very careful when you're writing the test name, because it will run as per the alphabetic order. But if you want to run them in a proper order, you can explicitly mention one additional attribute called priority, that I want login on first priority, then second priority should be account creation, logout should be third priority. So you can add a comma here, you can add something called priority 1, then I will say this is priority 2, and just after description add comma again and priority equal to 3. Now if you see the execution, it will be same as per what we have mentioned. So it says yes, login to application, then account and log out. If you see this, now we are getting the proper order, right, because of the priority. So lowest priority will always get executed first. So even if you write the negative numbers, it's allowed here. Okay, so let's say if I give -2 here, so -2 is lowest, right? So -2, -1, 0, 1, 2. So -2 will get executed first this time. So if you run this again, see, this time since we added -2, it executed account creation, then login and then log out. See, generally we don't give negative priorities. It is just for the interview purpose. Sometimes they might ask you, right, what if I give negative priority? But when you're writing a test, try to give some priority which is valid, which is readable basically. So this is, now you can add additional feature to your test. Now suppose I want to create a dependency between the test. For example, if my if my login is not working, it should not perform the next test, right? Or maybe if login is not happening, don't even perform the account creation or the logout. So this kind of dependency also you can create when you add one additional attribute. For example, let me add depends on method. This is one of the attribute, okay, depends on method. So account creation is dependent on login, so I will just add login. No need to pass the pair of parentheses, just type the login. In a similar way, I can also add depends on methods. Groups is different thing. As of now, we just want to add login. Now how do we fail the test? Because right now just a sysout statement, right? So obviously it will not work because it will always be in a pass state. So in order to fail my first test, now I'm going to introduce something called assert class. Okay, assert class is available in TestNG, which will help you to perform assertions. So you can perform like assertion based on 2 values, single values, assert not null, assert null, and so on. So I will be using assert class now to assert the values. So in this case, let me write one assertion. So assert is a class. Again, you will see 2 different classes. One is coming from dev.failsafe internal. Please ignore. You have to take assert from org.testng. That is the package, and you can start giving assertions now. See, there's a dedicated assertion class also. The separate class called assert JUnit. So please be very careful when you import this respective package. Now this class have lot of assertions, and all these methods are static in nature. It means you don't need to create object of assert class. Just say assert dot, a list of assertions will come. You pass the actual versus expected. If both will be same, pass. If any matches, fail my test. So in our previous lectures, we used to write if else statement, right? That was just kind of a temporary validation that we added, but we will be replacing them with actual assert. So if I say assert dot assert equals actual versus expected, let's say I want to say 12 versus 12, some random assertion just for the demo purpose. We will add the actual assertions tomorrow. So I will say 12 13. Now obviously when I say assert equals 12 13, actual expected not valid, it will fail, and it will not throw exception, it will throw assertion error. I will repeat again. Previously we used to get no such element exception, index out of bound exception, and so on, but the moment assertion fails, it will throw assertion error. You will get the details. And since now we are giving dependencies between the tests, right? So second test will not run, it will be in a skip mode. Third test also is dependent on the login, right? So this will also be in a skip mode, not pass, not fail, skip mode. So let's execute this. Can you see? Now we have a different status. Total 3 execution, 1 failure, 2 skip. And if I open this, login executed, but these two are in a skip mode. And if you see this, it says assertion error. Expected was 13, but found 12. So this is actual, this is expected. So it says I was expecting 13 but found 12. So this is another attribute depends on methods. So how to create dependencies between the tests? This should be the answer. If in interview they're asking how to create dependencies, how we can create a condition like if this fails, don't run this is the answer. So this dependency you can create based on 2 levels. One is method level, which I showed you. Second is based on the groups. So suppose you created one group, let's say smoke group. This smoke scenarios have 3 test cases. And again you have the regression group. Here we also have 5 test cases. You want to condition if my smoke test is getting failed, do not execute the regression. So group level dependency also you can do that. Yeah, I hope it is clear. Please give me quick information before I move to the next example. Now there's a very interesting question by Nitranjan. Will it execute particular method by run debug functionality don't have the latest version? So you can execute or debug any test at the test level. Okay, so if I just add a debug statement here, I can debug one test directly from here. I can execute one test from here. If I want to execute all of them, I can do it from here. Now let's say if I execute the second test, which is account creation, and if I execute this, did you notice it executed 2 tests? Why? Because account creation depends on login, right? So whenever you run a test which is dependent on another test, it will run that test also first, because this is not independent, right? If this is independent, execute. But if this test is dependent on some other test, this it will execute, but before that this will also get executed. Okay. Now let me see one more question from Gokul. Created Selenium script with DDT works fine, but the same I tested with the large Excel with multiple sheet script failed. I used get sheet add, searched on Google, but did not get the proper answer. See Gokul, when you say script failed, you need to tell what is the exception. Failure is a bigger term, it failed. But is it failing because of the Excel is not able to load? Is it because the data is not coming from Excel? Is it failing because of the Selenium side? So tell me the exception, that are you not able to load the data to the data provider, or maybe you're able to load the data from data provider, but it is not getting populated in your scripts, or maybe it's getting populated but this Selenium scripts is failing because of some exceptions. So let me know the exact exception, then maybe we can help you out. Okay, so Gokul has contributed 20 rupees. Okay, thank you so much, Gokul. I will buy a tea. Perfect. Shravan says, please explain method label and group label. So Shravan, method label just now we discussed, right? So group label, let me talk about what exactly is group. Then you can have a dependency between the groups as well. Jatin says, can we have more than one depends on method? Yes, why not? You can have multiple. Okay, so the moment you open this, right? Can you see? Okay, maybe I will show you here. You can pass here multiple methods as well. Now let me just refresh test output, and let me show you the report as well. The moment your test is getting failed, okay, you will see a login which is obviously failed. The second one is skipped, and it says depends on method successfully not finished. So this is coming in a skip mode, so it will tell you the reasons as well. Right now it just shows 2 because I executed only the second one. If I execute all of them, and if I come back, so this time 1 failed, 2 is skipped, and this is the reason. Now let me show you one interesting fact here. This is again a frequently asked question in interviews. How do we execute only failed test cases in Selenium? Okay, very common question and very easy. You don't need to write a single line of code. How to execute the failed test cases? If I just refresh this again, you will see a separate file called TestNG-failed.xml. So this XML will have only the failed test cases information. Okay, so the moment you execute this, it will only execute the failed test cases. So suppose you have 100 test cases, out of 100 you executed all of them, 20 got failed. So you want to first analyze why these 20 test cases has been failed, and now you want to run your test suite again, but only with these 20 test cases. So if you just open this XML, it will have the detailed information, how many tests it will run the moment you XML. Right now we have the dependencies, right? So it will run all, but if you have few tests which is independent and they're passed, that will not be part of this. So in short, this XML will only contain failed test cases, and if you run this, only the failed test will get executed. If you want to see, let me add one more test here. Okay, I will say public void, let's say tear down, just giving a random method name, tear down, or maybe close the connections, close all connections, and I will keep this as @test. I will not keep any dependency, and let me execute this. Run all, or right click run as a TestNG test. Notice 1 pass, 1 failed, 2 skip. So ideally, if I get the previous Excel TestNG failed.xml, right, it should execute only 3 tests, right? So every time, the moment you have a new execution, right, you will get a new XML every time. So you can see TestNG failed.xml, and if I open this, it still have only the 3 methods. This time it has not added the first test case or tear down test case, right, because it is running successfully. If that is getting failed also, that will come here. If I execute this, same older test cases will get executed. I hope it is clear. Okay, so Mano says, is there any limitation to define the method in the test basis? No, you can have n number of test cases in one Java class. You can have multiple attributes in one in one test case. Ajay says, in my project, we are using @before test even if we have only one method per class. What is the difference between method level and the test level? So Ajay, for that you have to wait tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll discuss the different annotations, not only test and class. We'll start with before suite, before test, before class, before method, and before group as well. And same will go in a reverse order. After method, after group, after test, after class, after test, and after suite. So this is a complete order we'll discuss. Jatin says, what if out of 20 some are depends on other? In simple words, Jatin, if your test case is dependent on any other test, that will also get executed. So it is one dependency or multiple, the concept will remain same. Nikita says, could you please explain why that method? Which method, Nikita? That method means which method? Because I don't see any method is executing twice. Okay, so Google has given the exception. Try to allocate an array of length 125. Okay, so it's like 12 lakh. No, not 12 lakh. 1 CR 25 lakhs, but maximum length for this record type is 1 CR. Okay, so it's because of the length restriction, Google. So maybe you can execute this into two sets because it's not related to what we have in Selenium. So there are two options. Either you can change the JVM heap size, because based on the heap size only you can allocate a specific number of records, right? So one option, I increase the heap size or divide this into two sets. Okay, so guys, that's all from today. In the next session, we will talk about the different annotations that we have. We'll actually write some Selenium tests using TestNG. We will have a proper validations using assert class. We will also talk about hard assert versus soft assert, the different constructors that we have in assert. Okay, main important, how to create your test suite, how to create testng.xml and so on. So don't miss tomorrow's lecture, very important for real time and for interviews as well. Okay, so yes, that's all from my side. If you guys have any question, feel free to ask. I will be here for the next 5 minutes. If you don't have any question, then yeah, we can end this session today and we'll continue tomorrow. So those who have joined like from today, we have been doing this community session from last 12 days. Please go ahead and visit the previous recordings. You will learn a lot of new things. But if you are anyways attending from day one, thank you so much for that. Okay, and how many of you learned something new from today's session? Because many people have used TestNG, right? But few things, anything new that you have learned today, let me know in the chat section. Nikita says, with priority -2 got executed twice. Okay, just a second, let me do that. -2 we don't have, Nikita, here. That was just I added so that I can show you you can give the negative priority as well, but I don't think it will execute twice. It will just change the order, that's all. One second. Now, Samya Brata Goha Chaudhary, what is the best practice? If I have to create 200 test cases in the project, should we create all the test cases in a single Java class, or shall we create different module based on the Java classes? So obviously you will not be adding 200 test cases in one Java classes. What you can do, based on the functionality, you can have the test cases in a single Java class. For example, if I have to test my login, so login related I can keep inside one Java class. Now if I have another, let's say after login I have maybe add to cart options, or maybe by particular categories, or let's say I have to create accounts, leads, campaign. So based on that functionality you can create a test. So ideal practice is you can have few tests. If you have so many tests, do not add all into one. If you have, let's say 50 scenarios for each category, try to divide into two. But even if you want to have in one, it's perfectly fine, but do not dump everything into one Java class. So based on the features, you can group these test cases into one Java class and continue. In BDD, when you start Cucumber, right? So here, based on the features, you can have the test classes. So Goha, you got my answer, right? Now Technologies Grade says, how can we create data-driven framework using TestNG? You will be using data provider. So framework, you will only call this as a framework when you are using so many things, okay? If you just use data provider with TestNG, we will call it a data-driven test, not data-driven framework. So data-driven framework, when you use some best practices, you are taking data from external sheet, or using design pattern and all, right? So if you just use data provider with the test, or data-driven test. But for framework, you have to follow some best practices, take data from configuration files, you have proper reporting, and so on. We have Mike. Mike says, I just discovered this today. I hope I will join. So Mike, thank you so much for joining. This is the 13th lecture. Initial few lectures was on Selenium. Last 4 lectures was on Selenium interview question preparation. And this week we will continue with TestNG and Maven. From next Monday we are starting back-to-back community session on Cypress. So if you are completely new to Cypress, you don't know what is Cypress, how to write the test cases, how to create reports, and so we are going to discover another framework which is very popular nowadays. It will be like in demand in future. So we'll talk about Cypress, how to write test cases, assertion, type click activities, everything. So we'll see what we can cover in the next community sessions. Okay, Nikita says you put assertion for the first method. Second method was dependent on the first one. You executed only the second one. Yes. So that is the thing here, Nikita. Now, suppose if I execute this logout test. Now logout is dependent on login. So logout will not run independently now. Since it is dependent, so logout is dependent on login. So this will get executed first and then it will be executed. If they are running independently, then if you just click on run, it will run only that particular test case. Okay, for example, if I just execute only the logout, so run it, again it executed too. Why? Because it is dependent on login. Technology is great says, how can we create? Maybe you have to wait for the 3rd day or maybe 4th day. If you want to see right now, just go to my channel, search for how to write data-driven test in Selenium by Mukesh Otwani. You will get my video. I have shown with 2D array. I have shown with Excel as well. Okay. Perfect. So yeah, that's all from my side. Jatin says, I learned dependencies tag, which was not he was not aware of this. So thank you, Jatin. Manoj says, finding the failed test cases, difference between failed script. Okay, thank you, Manoj. See, you can find the test cases, failed test cases for each test suite level as well. For example, I have 10 test suites. Okay, so one XML is common, which will be combination of all, but for each test suite also you will get a dedicated XML. So once we create XML, right, you will notice for each test suite we'll get one single XML file, and one will be the common one. Bharti says, is it only the live class or Can I watch second? So Bharti, it's a live right now, but obviously after this live, this will be live on my YouTube channel. So if you missed the starting part or if you missed something, you can revisit this video and the previous videos as well. Only the code or the source files which I am covering here, that will be uploaded to iNeuron portal. So I will give you the link. Just enroll now. It's completely free. Go to the resource section. I will upload the files that I'm discussing today. Okay. So yes, that's all from my side. So Krishna, last question. He's the premium member. So thank you, Krishna, for that. What is the best practice of using depends on method or not? See, Krishna, if you just open the Selenium official documentation, there's a small note you will find. I want to highlight that as well, because you might come across with this question in interviews as well. If you just say selenium.dev, go to the documentation, and if you go to the test practices, okay, encourage behaviors, now this is a point from official documentation called test independency. It means write each test as its own unit. Write the test in a way that will not be reliant on the other test case to complete. This is one overall point, that write all the test cases as an independent test, so that if something goes wrong, it should not impact the other test. That is fine. But if you have certain tests which is dependent on each other, you can go ahead and do that. Let's say login and logout, they are dependent. If login is not happening, it does not make any sense to execute logout. Or maybe if payment is not done, why to run the generate invoice test cases? Obviously it will fail. So one is standard set of practices as per Selenium. I totally agree. Few tests should be independent, but if you want to create a dependency, go ahead. It will be in a skip state. But if you run independently, only the status will change. Instead of a skip, it will change to failed. So in both the cases, this will not get executed. Only in the reporting you will see some differences. Make sense? Okay, perfect. So thank you once again for joining, and yeah, I will see you all tomorrow, same time 6 p.m. IST, and we'll continue with the TestNG features. Yeah, thank you so much. Have a nice day. Bye bye.